So, like, I think that the scene is filled with ego, right? Electronic music, and there's a lot of egocentric decisions we make. I myself am completely guilty of that. I don't think any organizer can say that they haven't let their ego get in the way of any decisions since they've been in the industry. But I really feel that there's the right balance of everything.
I have to sadly say, it's no scene in Thailand. That is sad. In Thailand nowadays, they have a lot of group of people. They start to do music, have an event all the time. And all the event that happening, it's only that group go together. And that group go together. And why? Not they don't like each other, but they don't want to know each other. That is the problem. So the thing is, like, think about it. If we create a community, what is community mean? Release the work for a while, get together and get to know each other. What you're based from, what you're doing, what your club you're spinning, what my club's spinning, and the scene, everything the same thing, right? Think about before you like create one event, your friend go, but now you know everyone. We create one event, everybody go.
But when it comes to competition, for local scene, it just doesn't work. If you want to compete, just go to Berlin. If you claim that like you are that big name and you are really skillful enough, which I'm not going to talk against that because it is not my business. But go to Berlin. Go to Miami if you want to compete. But like Bangkok scene is like, my favorite scene in Europe is Tbilisi, Georgia. A beautiful scene, 2 big clubs, Kahidi and Bastiani and 4 other great venues. Okay, they are not clubs, they are bar, like a boiler room style. Okay, Tbilisi they have 6 great venues for underground scene, not techno. Doesn't have to be techno. Bastiani is techno enough. Kahidi is techno. Kahidi is more darker actually. Bastiani goes like more Watergate. Right. So, but what those people do in Tbilisi? I have many friends in there. That's how I know, and I've been there too. What they do, they help each other. They contribute with each other. They hold each other's hand and they rise together. They don't ignore people in the scene to protect their throne because there is no throne. Because they are aware and they are educated enough that most of them, they are doing this thing for entertaining themselves and as a hobby. I'm not saying that we are DJing as a hobby, but if our job is not our hobby, we shouldn't do that job. If we only see that thing as a job, we really shouldn't do that. We really should find something else that we can enjoy, So that's my point, and why we are competing with each other. Like we are 20 and between 40 years old people. We're supposed to be adults. Why we are acting like kids,
There's definitely ego involved. There are like differences between promoters. There's a bit of beef going on between several people. But in the end, we are really a small scene. Considering Bangkok has 20 million people, it really feels like a small village. So, the smallest thing you do or you say goes around really quick. I think this whole ego thing is just holding things back, and as there are many promoters trying to do their thing in particular, it's not really bringing the scene forward. And what I would like to see is, for instance, not only promoters but maybe also clubs trying to work together. So now there are a few things happening. There are like crossovers. For example, Moustache is doing a takeover at Sing Sing, which is really good. Moustache going to different venues, working together with them, promoting themselves. But also, for example, Safe Room in the commune, I heard they're planning to do some crossover events where they do takeovers at each other's venue and cross-promote. And this is something I think we should work towards too, because as the scene is really that small and tightly knit, we should just pull all together and try to get all people to come to our events, right? And I don't say that everyone has to work with everyone together. Everyone has occupied their niche, right? But within that niche, there are already also a few promoters, and those all can just come together and create like some kind of like unit, right? So you have a unit for the melodic techno, you have a unit for the live music, and maybe we could just all talk together a bit more, you know, like I know, it's like put up a calendar where we say, okay, this event is happening that date, because sometimes some weekends you have 20 events, you don't know where to go, and then, for example, like last weekend was completely dead, right? So that could be organized a bit more towards spreading out everything evenly and getting a bigger crowd to all it.
I think about the ego thing is like when everything is rising up, you can just popping up there and make some really like business promoting. You use everything, like you can pay for ad, you can pay for followers. You don't have to be friend or to care about the community as much as you can make more money and fame. That's how ego getting on the way when everything's growing up. And by that, ego can kill all the sense of community that we try to build here. Because it's so easy that you get lost in the frame and the money. And by then, you won't care less about how you want to build this scene together with all those people who really have the same passionate. But maybe they are behind your big shadow of ego. But well, like it's not last. The people with the ego days always be gone somehow. Because one thing is about this more community of sharing and love.
Ego is the enemy. There's actually a really good book called Ego is the Enemy by one of my favorite authors, Ryan Holiday. And I think that ego has the capacity to make us, it has the capacity to lead us towards poor decisions, right? When you're making decisions out of ego, sometimes it's affecting people around you in a negative way, and that's when it becomes a problem. And also, like, ego leads to overconfidence. Overconfidence leads to you putting yourself ahead of others, which in this industry is very difficult because it's still a growing industry and we really need the support of other people to be able to consistently win. There is a lot of talk about that in our industry of, you know, why doesn't everyone work together? Why doesn't everyone try to build together? It's because it's a struggle. You know, it is a struggle, and the audience is very limited, and it makes it hard for people of different personalities to just collaborate so easily, even though it can benefit everyone. And the solution to that is to reduce the ego. You know, when you reduce the ego and when you are more open to collaboration, and you're not putting your needs and your brand or the achievements that you need in order to make yourself feel like you're the man, if you're putting that above everything else, in the end of the day, you can, but it's going to lead to maybe short-term wins, but not long-term success, right? So I think that the more that you value ego and the more you put your ego first in this industry, the more that you're going to suffer in the long term. You might have wins in the short term, but it's going to catch up with you. It's almost like karma in a way, if you have that attitude. But yeah, that said, I'm not the perfect in any way in regards to ego. And there was definitely a time where I was putting myself and my brand too far ahead of my own event, you know, and I thought that that's what people need. They want a personality. But at some point, it becomes you indulging in the attention rather than you being able to grow your event or your community. And that's where it can become a bit toxic. Yeah. Life is a balancing game. Events is a balancing game. And finding the right balance for everything is important. So ego is another area where I feel that it needs to be balanced correctly in order to have the right impact. Yeah.